Yamuna Chira Bana Kahari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Vihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharidhari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharidhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamurtiya Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shiva Maharaj Acharya, Stodes of the Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Om Vishnu Padam Sabaraj Acharya, Stodes of the Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada ki Go Premanandi. We'll continue with our reading of Sri Caitanya-Caritamrita, Madhya 23, which is life's ultimate goal, love of Godhead. We spoke yesterday about how we need to know about the goal and hear about the goal, even though you may humbly and realistically feel that the goal is far beyond you. Still, you have to know where you're going. You have to know what is the result of sadhana bhakti, the rules and regulations of devotional service. Just like when you're on a long journey, let's say you have just come from Florida to Caitanya-Caritamrita for this weekend. It's a long drive, but you have the goal in mind. And you progressively get closer to the goal. So in bhakti, even though we may feel this subject matter is so far beyond me, it is there in Sri Caitanya-Caritamrita, summarized in Nectar Devotion. And we're meant to hear about it so that we become attracted to the science of love, real love. In the material world, people crave love. They're always anxiety about love. They're always feeling various negativities and positivities about love. Why cannot we revive our interest in pure love of Krishna and hear all about its procedures, details, classifications? By hearing, gradually over the years, we become attracted to the subject matter. So we'll chant our theme verse, which we did yesterday, with Madhya-Lila, chapter 23, text 1. You have that on your devices. And as we explained yesterday, this is the section of Caitanya-Caritamrita known as Sanatana-Siksha. Lord Chaitanya is giving instruction to Sanatana Goswami about the opulence, the Aishvarya of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, about the Madhurya, the sweetness, and also now about life's ultimate goal. Chiradatam nijagupta vitam Supremanamrita achyudara Apamaram yo vitatara gora Krishno janevyas tamaham prapaje Chiradatam nijagupta vitam Supremanamritam achyudara Apamaram yo vitatara gora Krishno janevyas tamaham prapaje Chiradatam nijagupta vitam Supremanamritam achyudara Apamaram yo vitatara gora Krishno janevyas tamaham prapaje Vaishnavis. Chirat, for a long time, adatam, not given, nijagupta vitam, his own personal confidential property. Suprema, of love for him, nama, of the holy name, amritam, the ambrosia, ati udara, most munificent, apamaram, even down to the lowest of men. Yeah, one who, vitatara, distributed, Gaura, Sri Gaura Sundara, Krishna, Lord Krishna himself, Janavya, to the people in general, to him, aham, I, prapadye, offer obeisances. Translation, the most munificent Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Gaura Krishna, distributed to everyone, even the lowest of men, his own confidential treasury in the form of the nectar of love of himself and the holy name. This was never given to people at any time before. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So we were reading yesterday the first few verses of this chapter, and we'll continue a few verses later. And we'll try to touch a little bit on the subject matter of preliminary love of Krishna, the stage called Bhava. Om Agana Chimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshunmilitangena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as we discussed yesterday, sets off the presentation by saying, now hear, O Sanatana, about the result of devotional service, which is love of Godhead, life's ultimate goal. One who hears this description will be enlightened in the transcendental mellows of devotional service. You find this word mellow, or plural, mellows, throughout Nectar of Devotion. It's Old English. In contemporary English, you'll just find mellow as an adjective. So-and-so is a mellow person. Or this beverage has a mellow flavor. So the context of the word mellow, which is used so often, for those of you who study Nectar Devotion, you know that. It means a rich, full, substantial taste or flavor. So actually, it's in its Old English usage, it's very appropriate for the topic of explaining love of Krishna. Because love of Krishna has substantial, rich, fragrant flavors or mellows. Lord Chaitanya is going to explain how one progresses through the various stages of bhakti so that you actually get a full taste upon getting a full taste of devotional service. And we discussed about the ripe mango and the unripe mango. Both are mangoes. So in the neophyte stage, still it's a mango, although the mango is unripe. Therefore, the mellow or the flavor is not as sweet as a mango in the mature stage. The whole process of bhakti is about reviving our dormant love for Krishna. It's buried. It's so buried that, for example, in the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it says that basically the soul, our real self, is asleep. Even our soul is lost. Not literally, but it might as well be, because we're so ignorant of it and so unconscious of our spiritual nature. So in that sense, the soul is lost. Lost to you and lost to everyone else. No one knows about its existence and no one cares. Ordinarily, you can make a list of your various necessities in life, and on that list will not be, I have to find myself, I have to find my soul. Often when people refer to their soul, they're referring to their material aspirations, the core of their being as far as they know, which means simply physiology and psychology. So people may say to someone, oh, you thrill my soul. That's just about psychology, hormones, and emotions. But the actual non-material self is lost. And even more lost is the relationship between the non-material self and the supreme self. That's forgotten. Srila Prabhupada uses a term in Bhagavatam, which I found very fascinating. He says, the mystery of forgetfulness. Very poetic. How is it we have become so covered over? How is it we've forgotten so much about what is so crucial? This is the mystery of forgetfulness, the power of the illusory energy. No one likes to feel that they're bewildered, duped, cheated, blinded. We like to feel that we are very expert, we're experienced, we're competent, we're on top of our game. But the reverse is the reality. Yes, there is an illusory energy. Krishna explains that in Bhagavad Gita. Daiviyesha gunamayi mamamaya dharateya mameva ye prapajyante mayamitam tanantite. Krishna explains very clearly that he has an illusory energy, and that this illusory energy is impossible for us to cope with, what to speak of overcome it, unless we do things Krishna's way. So it's a little humiliating to see our whole life as being under the spell of the illusory energy. Sometimes when we're really brought to our knees by the circumstances of life, we then can understand or start to perceive, not understand, but get a glimpse of how much we are blanketed by not knowing. We think, I'll do this, I'll do that, it'll work out for me, it'll be good for me. And the reverse is true. Because even in the few circumstances that we get what we want, we're going to lose it. So even though we may have gotten what we want, which is not often, still there's lamentation because we're going to lose whatever we wanted. This is the basic condition of material existence. Therefore, at the preliminary stage of spiritual development, explained by Krishna in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the qualification of no hankering and no lamentation is very important. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nashotati Nakamsa. At that preliminary stage called Brahma Bhuta, your Prasanatma, the Atma, is happy, not materially happy, but happy because of the understanding I'm not the body, I'm spirit soul. That's not the ultimate happiness. The ultimate happiness, which has nothing to do with the material energy, is to be reestablished in your relationship with Krishna. So the Brahma Bhuta stage is preliminary self-realization, but still you're joyful because it's wonderful not to any longer identify with the body and its demands. And part of that preliminary stage is nasotati nakamchati. You're not hankering for anything, for any material fulfillment, and you're not lamenting for what you already have that you're losing. So this is material life. I want more, and meanwhile, while I'm hankering and longing for more, I'm losing whatever I already have. And of course, the rest, samat sarveshu bhuteshu. You see all living entities as equal. There's no question of exploitation of other creatures or other humans based on the body. So Krishna says, in that Brahma Bhuta situation, you're ready to perform devotional service. So how many of you were at that stage before taking up bhakti? How many of you were situated on the Brahma Bhuta platform, the preliminary stage of self-realization? What happened? Gaura Krishna, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, giving away the confidential treasury of love of Krishna to the most unqualified. You would never give your confidential understandings, your confidential activities, your confidential inner world. You would never reveal that to just anyone off the street. And Krishna is the most particular. That's why at the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, don't talk about me to those who have no qualification of austerity, those who are envious of me. Don't talk about me. Don't teach them. But the devotees are more merciful than even Krishna. And Lord Chaitanya is Krishna coming as his own devotee. And he breaks all of Krishna's rules. He distributes the most confidential nectar of Krishna to the most unqualified, without discrimination. Just take it, take it, take it, take it. And what is Gaura Krishna, Gaura Sundar, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu distributing? The taste of love of Krishna to anyone. Even you have no knowledge, as we explained yesterday, no understanding of Krishna. First you get a taste. Whereas Krishna is very strict. He says in Bhagavad Gita, first come to the preliminary status of self-realization, Brahma Bhuta platform, in which you realize your spirit soul. There's no yearning, hankering, material desires. There's no lamentation. You see all living entities as equal. Then we can start talking about bhakti. So none of you were at that level. None of us were at that level. But Krishna comes as Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and breaks all of Krishna's rules. Just giving, giving, giving. It's like someone sticking something in your stomach, a presentation, something nice. Take it, come on, take it, take it. That's Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And of course, Lord Chaitanya's program is first you taste. Yes, even from the very beginning, there's a taste. It's nothing compared to what's at the ultimate goal. When you achieve the ultimate goal, the preliminary taste is nothing, but it is there. So even the beginner is tasting something. So Mahaprabhu's program is first you taste a little bit, and then we talk business. We talk about you're signing the dotted line. I often give the example that those of you who visited Vrindavan in the old days, it's not like that now, but Lowy Bazaar in Vrindavan, I remember when I first went in 1977, all the merchants in Lowy Bazaar were so happy to see us. A few merchants had caught on, but if they put a picture of Prabhupada in their stall, then the devotees would think, oh, this is a good place. So of course, the merchants thinking about business would put a picture of Prabhupada in their stall. And as you were walking through Lowy Bazaar, they would call, Prabhu, Prabhu, come, come, come. And then they would point to the picture. Whether they were cloth merchants or sweet merchants selling sweets, they would call you over, especially those selling sweets. They knew that Westerners were very vulnerable for tasting Indian sweets. So there you are. Generally, you're in Lowy Bazaar because you're getting deity paraphernalia, or you're getting cloth, saris and dhotis and kurtas like that. And so the sweet shops would call, the merchant would sit right at the front and call you over, Prabhu, come, come, come. You would say, no. Come, come, come. And then he would beckon to you with a sweet, and he would offer you a sit down, and then he'd give you some sweets. So devotees would accept. And then, of course, the merchant would start selling them something. So first they taste, and then the merchant says, okay, let's do some business. Don't you want to buy more? So this is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's method. First taste. You like? The merchants at Lowy Bazaar would always say, you like? They realized gradually, the merchants gradually realized that some visitors from the West were they weren't in tune with the local culture, so they would just take for free, give me more, more, and then they would leave. But they didn't understand that the culture is that once you take a taste, there's some obligation, you buy something. So gradually the merchants realized that these foreigners don't know the local culture. If you give them something free, they'll just say, yeah, okay, bye. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving the taste of loving Krishna. And once you taste, then he says, now we'll sit down and discuss how you're going to change your behavior, how you're going to adopt the bhakti lifestyle, how you're going to chant Hare Krishna. So this is how Lord Chaitanya distributes what Krishna will never give to such unqualified persons. And here in Caitanya-Caritamrita, you have the revealing of love of Krishna in its various stages. So Mahaprabhu first starts talking about affection for Krishna becoming deeper. The technical term for affection is rati, and that's the same as bhava, in case you ever wondered. So you can read, when affection for Krishna, or when bhava for Krishna becomes deeper, one attains love of Godhead in devotional service. That's another way of saying prema. the full stage of love of Krishna. There's a preliminary stage, bhava, and then there's prema, the full stage. So in prema, the full stage, the relationships with Krishna are stable and steady. There's no flickering. Therefore, such a position is called sthai bhava, permanent enjoyment of the mellows of devotional service to Krishna. Permanent situation in one of the relationships with Krishna. Dasya prem, servitude. Sakya prem, friendship. Vatsalya prem, parental. And Madhurya prem, conjugal. Permanent situation. You're fixed, you're steady. There's no question of going backwards. After introducing this point of how bhava, or affection for Krishna, becomes deeper, becomes full-blown love of Krishna, prema, Lord Chaitanya is going to take a step back a bit and further talk about bhava, the preliminary stage of love of Krishna. So he quotes a verse which you'll also find in Bhakti-Rasamrita Sindhu. Shuddha sattva visheshatma, this is text 5, prema suryamshu samya bhav, ruchibis chitta masrinya, krid asau bhava uchate. When devotional service is executed on the transcendental platform of pure goodness, not material goodness, it is like a sun ray of love for Krishna. At such a time, devotional service causes the heart to be softened by various tastes. And one is then situated in bhava, emotion. So first, of course, we need to understand we're not talking about sattva guna, the material mode of goodness. Beyond sattva guna, material mode of goodness is shuddha sattva, unadulterated goodness. Anything in the material world is always tainted, even goodness. Although the material mode of goodness is the most favorable stepping stone for taking the step into pure goodness. Still, the material mode of goodness is not our permanent position, and it is vulnerable to contamination by passion and ignorance. So Lord Chaitanya is explaining that when your devotional service goes beyond sattva guna, the material mode of goodness, in terms of its influences, and when it becomes free of all material taint, then you're executing bhakti on the platform of pure goodness, which has nothing to do with anything material. And it's described as prema suryamshu, a ray of sun, a ray of love of Krishna. Prema Surya means the sun of prema. Just like when the sun rises, there are first some rays before the full sun appears on the horizon, in the sky. Just like this morning was a little chilly, and then when the sun appeared, everything gets warm, and it'll be much warmer. Midday, early afternoon, you'll see it'll be much warmer. So when the first rays of the sun make their appearance, especially on a chilly morning, you're happy because you know things will warm up. That initial stage of sunrise, the first rays of the sun, is compared to bhava. Prema is when the sun is high in the sky and blazing, full on love of Krishna. But the preliminary stage of bhava is when those first few rays of the sun appear. Prema Suryam Shu, the rays of the sun, as compared to Prema Surya, when the sun is fully established in the sky, there's full developed love of Krishna. So Lord Chaitanya is describing that when you attain the stage of bhava, devotional service causes the heart to be softened by various flavors of the oncoming deepening of relationships with Krishna. You see, in the stage before preliminary love of Krishna, in the stage of asakti, attachment, you become attached to a particular rasa or relationship with Krishna. And then in the next stage, bhava, the preliminary stage of love of Krishna, that attachment develops into your tasting various flavors of the relationship. And then in prema, the relationship is full on. The Lord Chaitanya will now explain more about bhava. Bhava has two different symptoms, constitutional and marginal. Now, my dear Sanatan, listen to the symptoms of love. I have to admit, I just relish this verse. I read it over and over again. Lord Chaitanya, who is Krishna himself, is saying, listen to the symptoms of love. Doesn't get any better than that. But before getting to the point of relishing that statement, we have to be convinced that, I'm sorry, but there's no real love in the material world. Sorry, don't shoot the messenger. On the material platform, but in relationships between devotees, because Krishna's service is in the center or should be in the center, then that's something else. When I'm doing outreach programs, a very popular subject is relationships. People are so bewildered how to have relationships these days because it's, at least in the Western world, there's no more tradition of relationships, how relationships should be conducted, how they should be started, how they shouldn't break apart. It's all out the window. So people are just spinning in confusion. They want relationships, but they actually don't know how to conduct a relationship. Their parents have split, their grandparents have split. There's no family tradition or family expectation of stability. And so more and more you see mental confusion. The mind is like a roller coaster, no stability, because all the traditional markers and milestones in a stable society have just been wiped out. Of course, in India, there's still some stability, some social expectations, some milestones and markers that you're supposed to reach. You go to school. When I say school, I mean university. And then you get a job and you get your permanent residency. And then you get married. And then you buy a house and you have children and you don't divorce. In this way, you fulfill certain social expectations. In many ways, your life is already laid out for you. But in the Wild West, as many of you know, it's not like that. Everything's just thrown up in the air. Just do what you can, see how you feel today. If it's working today, great, who knows about tomorrow? Just have a good time today and consider yourself lucky if you're happy today. So people, I find throughout the world, are so pressed by dysfunctional relationships. So they're always asking about it. I explained to them that in bhakti, relationships are based on enlightenment. The people like to hear that. I tell them it's about being partners in enlightenment. Ooh. Because they want to know, how do you be together? They want to be together, but they can't pull it off. It's been so heartbreaking and disappointing and fracturing. Partners in enlightenment. Oh, that sounds very exotic. Yes. That sounds, we're together, but for a higher purpose. And it's true. Together for a higher purpose. The more that Krishna's service is in the center, the more a real bond develops. But what people are thinking is love is just a misrepresentation. It's like the reflection of light in the darkness. It seems like there's light in that reflection that's substantial, but it's just a reflection. Just like when there used to be chrome bumpers on cars. You would often see the sunlight or the moonlight reflecting off the chrome bumper. Enough that there would be some light in a dark place. So the reflected love is not enough for us. And that's why it's so important for us to hear about real love. And so when I hear, now my dear Sanatana, listen to the symptoms of love. Oh, that's what the heart is longing for. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, the word Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma, referring to the preceding verse quote, means situated on the transcendental platform of pure goodness. In this way, the soul is purified of all material contamination, and this position is called Sarupa Lakshana, the constitutional symptom of bhava, emotion. By various tastes, one's heart is softened, and there is an awakening of one's loving propensity to render spontaneous service to the Lord. This is called Tatashta Lakshana, the marginal symptom of bhava. So, in brief, often, especially in Caitanya-Caritamrita, you'll see things characterized as the constitutional symptom, the main symptom, and the ancillary, or the marginal symptom of suffering. Just like avatars have constitutional symptoms, their mainstay, and they have other characteristics that are considered marginal. Both are important. So the constitutional symptom of bhava is you're established in Vishuddha Sattva, purified goodness, pure goodness. There's no question of material contamination. And then what is the marginal symptom? Your heart is softened by various tastes of bhakti. And there's an awakening of your loving propensity to render spontaneous service to Krishna, not service performed out of duty, out of obligation, but from your heart springs a spontaneous desire to serve Krishna, to relate to Krishna in one of the rasas, in one of the relationships. So that is called Tatashta Lakshana, the marginal symptom of bhava. So finally, Lord Chaitanya explains about Baba. He's going to move from Baba to praying full-blown love of Krishna. But he continues about Baba here. When that Baba softens the heart completely, when it becomes endowed with a great feeling of possessiveness in relation to the Lord, and when it becomes very much condensed and intensified, it is called prema, love of Godhead by learned scholars. So you may say, oh, well, this sounds so far beyond us. We're just trying to wake up and chant our japa. But hearing these things awakens an appetite in us. That is why hearing is so important in bhakti. By hearing about the various stages of spiritual advancement, even the stages that seem so far away from us. Krishna in the heart notices your hearing and notices when there's something turning over in your heart. Like, oh, I'd like to be like that. Just that little, just being nudged a little in that way by your hearing is noticed by the super soul in your heart. And gradually the super soul starts making arrangements, especially the more you hear. So this is part of the mystery of bhakti, how to recover from the mystery of forgetfulness. All right, we'll stop there and ask if anyone has any questions. Yes.
Thank you, Shri Maharaj. I was wondering, you're describing Japanese higher levels of devotional service on and in the Nectar Devotion it talks about capital process. So I was wondering, how does somebody on this level, when they hear pastimes that flavor and their taste are in how do they react to those pastimes? How do they still relish them?
There is not unfavorable, incompatible rasa presented in the Shastra. The unfavorable, incompatible exchanges of rasa are presented as an example of what not to do. Some incompatible combinations have some value. That's all pointed out in Nectar of Devotion. This is why you'll read in Caitanya-Caritamrita, I hope you read that, Lord Chaitanya had a secretary, Devamrita. And anytime someone would approach Lord Chaitanya with some poetry, some literature about Krishna-Lila, the relationships with Krishna, first you had to go through Sri Damodar, and he would check out the literature to make sure there was no incompatibility of rasas. So he would make sure that you wouldn't first approach Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with such incompatibilities that are unfavorable. That's how this is love. It's serious business. You know, in the Western world, love is just willy-nilly, you know. When I'm around you, I feel a fever. That's love. So in bhakti, love is the most serious affair. It's a science. And therefore, Lord Chaitanya keeps a secretary, because persons are always trying to compose literature, compose poems about Krishna's pastimes and rasa, and they want Lord Chaitanya, please hear this, this is so wonderful. So Lord Chaitanya kept a secretary to vet all the all the PhD dissertations. That's how serious loving affairs are in reality. Anything else? Yes?
So I think before a human condition, you must at least give responsibility, not or at least we perceive it as being cheap. You don't place much value on it when it comes to people who die. So we hear that Lord Caitanya gives us love of God and clearly, how does it not take that cheap for granted?
So she's saying that usually when you give something free, people take it for granted. If you charge them something, then they think, oh, this is very valuable. So how do we not take Lord Chaitanya's charity, most magnificent charity ever? How do we take it? How do we not take it for granted? Constant hearing is required. That's why in the first canto we read Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Ongoing hearing about Krishna, not just one time. You may notice in your life that you may have the misconception that, okay, I've heard about Krishna last week. I've had my quota. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya means daily. The more we hear, the more we're in touch with reality. The more we can appreciate the unparalleled gift of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Otherwise, remember the mystery of forgetfulness. How pure spirit soul forgets itself and identifies with matter. This is the mystery of forgetfulness. The mystery comes from Krishna, who's fulfilling your desire to forget about him. We are so helpless that even to forget Krishna, we need his help. Just, for example, in material relationships, sometimes people want to forget each other because of pain. I just want to forget about that person. You feel helpless. I can't get this person out of my mind. I want to get over it. The reality is we can't get Krishna out of our mind without his help. We're so insignificant that even if we want to forget Krishna, we can't do it on our own. You have the desire to forget Krishna, so Krishna helps you. Okay, you want to forget about me? I'll help you. Otherwise, can't do it. Similarly, if you want to remember Krishna again, you need his help. So that's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mata Smritir Jnanam Apodhanam Cha. From me comes all knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. This is how helpless we are. We're like a little child. Just like Sham Govinda's son, you can see, so dependent on the mother. If suddenly the little child says, I'm doing my own thing, I don't need you, it's insanity. But that's what we've done to Krishna. It's not, if you want to get into the psychology, as the acharyas, especially Srila Prabhupada explains, it's not that we just say, okay, Krishna, I don't want to remember you. It's, I would like something else. It's kind of more subtle. This mystery of forgetfulness. In France, Srila Prabhupada gave the example, because devotees were pushing him. If you were actually with Krishna, how could you turn away? Because Krishna is all attractive. How could you become unsatisfied if you're actually with Krishna? They were pushing. So Prabhupada replied that it's like you have very sumptuous dal rice chapatis every day. It's not that you dislike or develop a dislike for the sumptuous dal rice and chapatis, but you start thinking, I wonder what pizza would be like. So while maintaining your positive feeling for the dull rice and chapatis, you look away. And as soon as you look away, material energy's got you. You want to try something else. You start thinking, I wonder what it would be like to be the enjoyer, to be the master. It's very subtle. Anything else? All right, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Ekabir Prabhu ki